lived with my aunt, and
Yeah.
she had a pub in East London, Stepney, Dock Street, called the
Yeah.
Pepper Pot. And I'd go every weekend, and that's where I met all the Cockneys and all the singings, the lock-ins, the streets of London. I should have said that about the song, but yeah, anyway, whatever. So it's nice hearing a bit of a Cockney accent.
Oh, lovely, mate. It's lovely to have you join us today. That's the voice you can hear is Gavin Rossdale. How are you, mate?
I'm good, really good. Just fresh from the park.
Lovely.
Walking the dog.
I like to start this podcast with track one, obviously. And track one, I'm going to ask you, Gavin, to tell me, please, the song that you think has the greatest ever intro.
I think that my favorite, there's lots of intros, there's nothing better than like one of your favorite songs and you know it from that first moment. But this goes to U2 with Where the Streets Have No Name.
I mean, that's an absolute cracker, right?
That's the blinder. That's really like, it just, I was lucky enough, I had a side project in, I think, 2005. It's band Institute I did, and so we went out with U2 twice, weirdly enough, because we were very economic and sort of just four of us, we just played good and then got off the stage, and it was good fun. And hearing that every night, it's just the hairs on the back of your neck. I love Eno, Danny Lanois, and then of course U2. That was them at their finest, pre-disco.
I think the thing that's interesting about Joshua Tree is obviously we saw U2's live shows become huge kind of events and visuals and lots of kind of all sorts of phoning Salman Rushdie live from stage and all that kind of like craziness. But if you strip it back to Joshua Tree, it is essentially Bono in a vest and a microphone and three musicians just tearing it up, and it doesn't need anything else. I think the song you mentioned Lanois and Eno there, that collaboration of them, perfect, right?
Yeah, beautiful. And just, I remember when it came out because I don't know why, because, but I remember when it came out and how it's just, I was, in a band trying to get it going, trying to write a song that anyone would ever care about. And of course, that was all vinyl days. And I just remember being on a sort of NME and Sounds, Melody Maker. They were all up and running. And it was just like a blanket coverage with U2. And it was all about America and, we've taken on America, all the Bono stuff that he does, which I love him for. And it just was a great time. And I remember being in my kitchen on a little radio. Those lovely transistor radios that back in the day, and put it on my fridge and really been thinking, okay, what is the first song? What do they want us to get? And it was With or Without You.
Yeah.
And I was going to be like, oh, mate, it's a bit slow. It's not really like, oh, but then of course they get you, they seduce you with that song. But that whole record is one of the great records. And what's weird about it is that I'm sort of coming to terms with it more now, but they've been such an influence on me, in terms of how my favorite singer. He's my favorite singer. He's one of my favorite people, but he's an incredible singer. And the words and just the melodies and just, they were so important to me. And it was sort of became fashionable with anyone who's massive to sort of have a kind of a backline of backlash, a sort of a glimmer, a shadow of backlash. You know what I mean? Because he was just so great. But that record, unbelievable band.
And that track, when we're talking intros, and I want to ask you this, Gavin, as well, when you're writing now, because the way that people would have listened to and got hold of Bush music when you first started to now is very different. And, we live in a time of TikTok and all of these things where young people are getting music in a very fast way and attention spans are getting smaller. And this particular track, Where the Streets Have Name, there's no vocal for just shy of 2 minutes. And I just wonder, like, if new bands were to take that to a record company now and go, we've got this song, would they even entertain listening to something as good as that track is, taking nothing away from it? Like, well, hang on a minute, it's 2 minutes and nothing essentially is like, where's the hook? And I just
Yeah.
wonder, with all that in mind, when you're writing now, do them kind of Spotify playlists and TikTok and all of these things that are catering for faster and younger attention spans, does any of that filter through into your creative process?
Not mine. My guitar player, he loves. We're talking with the producer about algorithms, and I wanted to shoot myself in the face, or we'll shoot him. We'll shoot him. Not my favorite thing. So it was all about algorithms, which was like start with the chorus. As soon as you can, start with the chorus. And they took a song off of our record, The Art of Survival, and I'm in the studio in this room. I'm in my studio here, where the whole record began from silence, and then it goes through the process. It ends up in the big studio, and there was a day when I guess one of my kids had a game or something like that, and I had to leave the studio. So I left them there, the two of them together, and they had a song from I did here, which had this called "Slow Me," this really beautiful intro. And I found these voices in my computers, this program, soft synth with singing, and I made this sort of super tribal, really long beginning, like we were talking about. And it had this thing because I didn't have it, so a long beginning. I was thinking you can't have like 10 long beginnings on a record, but one is really. So I had this great thing, it's really bassy, just pure bass, and then this tribal thing. And when I came in the studio the next day, they had bashed it up and done the low chorus first, and completely. There's the most sort of production that was done on the record that was nothing to do with me, and I was just like slightly horrified. I was like, but that beginning was amazing. Like,
Yeah.
I was really upset about it, but in a collaborative process, you have to kind of let it be. And they were like, it's the algorithm. The algorithm is for that. I was like, well, that's disgusting. That's terrible. You can't. I was not into it. The algorithm stuff. I thought it was really it was very un-Neil Young.
Yeah.
I felt very like I was stamping on Neil Young's head.
Is that how everything's measured? How Neil Young it is?
Yeah. That was like stepping on his head when he's falling over, tripped up, and jumping on him. So I was like, but at the same time, it also sounded really good. And now that's how it stayed. And now, fuck it. If the kids have got sports, they can just play them, and I'm not going to go. I'm not going to do that again. No. It's like I just trying to be collaborative. I don't like it. And who knows? We'll see. People have been responding to it, but it's ironic that you say that because they changed my track, probably for the better. You know what I mean? It's not. I'm not saying I was right. I think I was so in love with all the voices I found that I was like, I just impressed myself. So there's probably my ego involved because I was like, wow, this is so good. This is me and my bass, but these voices, and it was just brilliant. And then it's in there, but in the mix, it's really quiet. So they weren't. So I was like, I'll do that trick again. It was a really good one.
Well, you mentioned kids. I'm going to take you back to when you as a kid, Gavin, and for track 2, ask you to tell me the first song you remember hearing that had an emotional impact on you, please.
I did have an answer, which I'm going to refrain from because who it turned out to be a bit of a fiddler. So it didn't really. I'm not going to talk about that person. It was a record I got. Somebody who got in a lot of trouble. Someone I didn't know. But it was like one of those situations where it all turned a bit pear shaped. Someone we thought was great turned out to be a bit naughty. Yeah. So that goes without saying. And I was looking at that and I was realizing that I must have been a real baby with that. But the one that really got me and just tripped me up or stopped me in my tracks was "Wild as the Wind." I was going out with this girl, Sarah Laurie, and I gave her It Must Be Love, Madness. I gave her the single because I grew up down the road from a place called Manzies on the Finchley Road, and there's a record shop. So I used to go and get all my records from there, my pocket money, whatever I got, would go up the road. And so it's very much real sort of Malcolm Gladwell-esque. that the proximity of a record shop right near to me. The closest shop was a record shop, Manzi's. And
how old would you have been?
this was when I was 12.
Oh, getting a girl, it must be love. You were smooth, mate. That's good. 12 years
Well,
old.
no. I tell you the story is that I wasn't that smooth because then she hit me with "Wild as the Wind," and
Oh, mate.
I was like,
She's raised the
I'm an
bar.
idiot. I was like, oh, she was from Hampstead. And I was from Swiss Cottage, Kilburn. So I was like, I thought I was a bit of a lad and really kind of and she just hit me with culture. And first off, I was like, oh, all right, hers is way more kind of like special, like fancy. And but I must admit that it was just mesmerizing, and it put me into a sort of a slightly state of shock. Like, what was this? And that was just around the time at that age that my aunt, who was living with us, she gave me Ziggy Stardust, the rise and fall of Ziggy Stardust. And where I grew up, everyone was into like Patrice Rushen, Lovers Rock, soul. Everyone would be doing the Ford Cortinas, doing them up, all the Big Brothers, always Big Brothers, the Armed Robber. Oh, everyone was great, everyone was Postman. It just was like a different world. And so you couldn't really, you'd get a bit of a slap if you was like playing David Bowie, and because they were like, you like all the weird girls at the disco, Maccabi at the youth club. I'd always like the punk girls, the weird girls. And so listening to Bowie was a private enterprise. But yeah, it really began with that. And today I got a note from Mike Garson asking me how I'm doing because I did some songs with him last year. He played on a couple of Bush songs. And I sang a song for him for Music Cares. I did Heroes, a slow version of Heroes. And isn't that brilliant how life turns out, that I love and friends with Mike Garson. And so anyway, but yeah, so Wild as the Wind, because it was like a extraterrestrial quality. I was like, what is this? It must be love, love, love. There's all lovely sing-along.
Yeah.
But Wild as the Wind, suddenly I was like, okay, I see you, Mr. Five Gears. All right, I got you. The Wild as the Wind is the one that really made me wake up to something else.
What do you think it was like? Kind of, there's levels to this. Like this is.
It was so deep. It just was like, it was so deep. It's been fun on this record because I've done a lot of delving into my past and about music I grew up with. Music was important to me. 5 records I couldn't live without. And it's funny because I was thinking about Ian Dury and the Blockheads was a big record for Wake Up and Make Love. Those things. Mr. Ricky Dicky, all these great songs. But the emotional one was Bowie.
Yeah. So growing up around Kilburn Way, like happy memories of growing up there?
Yeah, really good. I played for the Abbey Road Youth Club, played football. My girlfriend lived on the Quex Road. I lived in Swiss Cottage. And so it's West Hampstead, Swiss Cottage, where I lived in Kilburn, where it was like my youth club was, and all the Abbey Road lot. So yeah, I mean, brilliant stuff. Just amazing. I mean, like all the pubs, the first pub I went to, the Cock Tavern on Kilburn High Road, Biddy Mulligan's, which was the famous IRA pub. So we'd have a real sense of the Orange Day Parade, you see the Protestants marching, and it's just always like wow, because that's like, you knew there were people that sort of were in the terrorist organizations there. If you went in Biddy Mulligan's, that was pure IRA, Now, I was only a kid going in to play Space Invaders. Literally, the Cock Tavern was like a movie. You'd be playing that, and it'd be like women fighting, like bashing, do you know what I mean? It's like the old boys drinking the putt. It was brilliant. And they never cared that we were in there, like 12 years old, playing Space Invaders. When I was 12, I looked about 9. 7 was like someone's kid. So it's brilliant, sort of like it's a great energy. I got sort of tired of it because it's all a bit, the Abbey Road was all about, obsessed about the Edgware Road lot. And it's all a bit, they're all fighting. I never understood what they were fighting about. It was just all a bit crazy. And it's like playing for the youth club because there's some really good footballers there. And then so at a certain age, about 16, I suddenly realized that they were all a bit nuts and a bit, I don't know. and then I didn't like where I was. So it was I had a sort of weird childhood where it's sort of isolated time from 15 to 18 was a bit lost because everyone I grew up with, I wasn't really connected with. We were all work painters and decorators together and plasterers and everything like that. And I was doing music, but I'd sort of lost a load of friends and then I was at school. I wasn't connected. It was a weird couple of lonely years. And that's when I was really diving into not making music so much, more like finding solace in music a lot, especially Bowie, Lou Reed, that kind of thing, which again, I wasn't really allowed to do because it was all soul and R&B with everyone I grew up with.
Well, let's stay in the formative years. And for track 3, I'm going to ask you, Gavin, to tell me the song that reminds you of your time at school.
Yeah. Well, that would have been time at school. I think, you find out from your friends. So they loved Lou Reed, and that was the Transformer, and that was like Perfect Day, Satellite of Love, and those ones, and just like great, really fun parties in Richmond with because we went in the last 2 years of school doing A levels, then girls would come and sort of. I remember I was really like this one girl and this other girl. Sabine was just amazing. So I have memories of sort of just having fun, and that was those Lou Reed, Perfect Day. I remember just feeling a part of that gang, and that's what summed it up for me. Those songs.
Do you enjoy school?
It was a bit twisted because I enjoyed some of it. I enjoyed it it was a bit weird because I went to a really good school and it was really smart, and then everyone I grew up with went to the local school, so I got a bit slapped around for going to the better school. And then when I was at the better school, I thought they were a bunch of cunts, and so I was stuck in the middle. And I think that's interesting, and I think that it's so funny when you look back on it. I mean, I don't often think about this, or sort of, don't do therapy sessions about it. When I think about those things, or I'm forced to think about it, I realize that those seismic kind of shifts, or that disconnect between where I'm in people I grew up with were annoyed at me, and then people I went to school with were annoyed at me. It's just quite isolated and quite made me quite like a lone wolf. It felt like for a couple of years. But then when I did my A levels, and then I sort of got into books and reading, and I suddenly was like, oh, I had the Mac. I was smoking the red Marlboros. I was like, drinking coffee with the pretty girls after school, feeling really sick. But it was fun to smoke with them around the corner, and I, have copies of Jean-Paul Sartre in my. But everyone was like, it was interesting. Everyone's like peacocks, sort of finding their way how to be. So yeah, I did, and I liked it those years, because then suddenly I was understanding about books and things like that, and you became a person. When you're a kid, you're like Rossdale, whatever. You're just you're not even a person. You're just barely a name and a number. And a class of 30 kids, and always getting thrown out and being a bit lippy and just whatever, to then the last couple of years where suddenly you're in a much smaller class, they start calling you by your name, like you're a human. Read this book, what do you think about it? And suddenly you're elevated. You go to dinner, you go to someone's house, one of the teachers for dinner, be like, ooh, I had a glass of wine with a science teacher. It's all that stuff. I had this amazing guy, actually. He was the head of religious studies, whatever you call him. Was at his time, we did a religious class with him, Willie Booth, and we stayed friends. And he, in fact, married me when I married Gwen.
Really?
I got him to marry me. Yeah, it was so sweet. I stayed friends with him, and he would have these lovely dinners at his house with us kids when we were sort of 16, 17, and we'd go around, and he had a apartment from the church, and you'd go around and have this a dinner where you'd have a couple of glasses of wine. Can you imagine doing that now? He'd be arrested.
What's above that?
I mean, nothing was untoward. It wasn't like that.
Yeah.
It was just really friendly, and had a social circle. God, I remember going to a couple of things and just thinking. And after I left school, I would go back every now and again, go and see him, and have those dinners with him. It was so kind of him, and so those are great memories. And the thing was, I was really lucky because of some. I got a couple of friends I stayed friendly with, but I was in a real rush to just like get on with my life. I had no idea what I was doing, but I was doing it fast, whatever I was doing, and I didn't. I now wish I'd gone to uni, because what a luxury! Spent 3 years having a great time, right? Obviously, and also maybe learning something interesting with no pressure. Now, do you know what I mean? I was like straight into the world. I've got to like find my feet. I just was weird about it. I just had to. I was as driven as I am now. It's weird. I mean, I didn't have that much to do because I was trying to do stuff. And when I began to write songs, because I thought, well, if I'm a singer, I don't have to get a job and don't have to do anything. So I would sing into a dictaphone songs. I've no idea. They must have been terrible. Basically, centered around maybe one note, two notes. I don't know. No melody. Just like I don't know what it was. I don't know how I had the arrogance to think that my dad had a hi-fi thing, and you could record on it, and I just got a mic and I'd sing a song and I'd give it to my mate who I was doing a band with. I'd be like, hey, I've written some songs. It's just, bit of a terrible verse for the worst chorus or something. I don't know. But it's like I was just trying to do it and pushing it in, going to, it's funny.
You mentioned drive. Tell me about, was young Gavin a confident fella?
No, super insecure, super. I blushed up until I was 17. Someone asked me the time, I would blush. I just couldn't. I thought I wanted to be cool, but I just was like shy. I didn't speak till I was 4. My sister would do the talking for me when I was growing up. So I was sort of laid back. I don't know. I'm kind of like a quiet type A. Like, you know what I mean? I'm just sort of mellow. It's that Jordan Peterson idea of like being a sort of a burning furnace, semi-dangerous person who's liable to explode at any point, but they have it just under control. Yeah. So it's not being docile or, I was really into football and I was a really aggressive football player. I loved it. Central midfielders loved it. And so no, I just was in my own space, but just, I think I was quite shy and quite insecure, because we didn't grow up with I grew up with my dad from the age of 12. So, and he was a workaholic. So I sort of looked after myself since I was 12 and in many ways. And then my sister left when I was 14, 15, to go live in Spain. So sort of self-sufficient, really. I am self-sufficient. And so I was all right. Just, whatever, but all those kind of weird characteristics that we have, there's imprints of daily. I mean, think of it now, like, do you know what I mean? We don't let our kids do anything. You know what I mean? It's like they can't get up the stairs to go and get a pair of socks. Oh, let me get those socks for you. It's ridiculous. I'm like, God, there's not very. So if there's any time where they sort of have rows with each other and stuff like that, I sort of think it's good for them and just a little bit of edge and like deal with stuff. Got an issue, done this to me. Well, figure it out. It's a bit soft. My kids are the sports at school, terrible sports team where they get destroyed and everyone's like, participation trophies. I'm like, fucking they lost. What are you doing? Which part of losing is good? Right.
I want to ask you for track 4, Gavin, the first song you remember buying from a record store.
Well, the first, it's like I was trying to. I did read that question. I was like, from Man's being up the road, the biggest. I mean, I bought loads of singles. I was lucky enough to buy all the punk singles because it was that perfect time for me when punk was happening. I was 12, 13 years old. So I was lucky enough to get all the singles. I mean, I even have like the Police Can't Stand Losing You, the cover where he's I don't know if you remember it, where he's on an ice block with a heater like that, and I have that, right? So all those things I had, like Can't Stand the Rezillos, the Sex Pistols. I remember playing the Sex Pistols, God Save the Queen, and just it being a bit abrasive on my head. I was like, I know I'm meant to like this. I love everything about this revolution. This is doing me in a bit. And then when I got Pretty Vacant, I was like, now this, I like Pretty Vacant. I like Pretty Vacant. Yeah, I like really make it because it's pop. So you see, I've always had that melody sensibility.
Yeah.
But so Sex Pistols. I mean, it sounds too ridiculous saying "God Save the Queen," but that was right up there with the singles I was buying, and it was that's what started it off. And then when I'd go up there, the guys in the record shop would be, look, this is cool, but like this is the Doors. So I had a Doors spell. They introduced me to loads of different things. Again, super Malcolm Gladwell, you know, like, why were they giving that? You know, that was such a good education between my aunt and the guys at the record shop. And it's so sad because I've spoken about this for years. I've been a musician 30 years now. I never knew their names to thank them, you know, because I wonder where they are, you know, because they had a interesting effect on my life. So any of those punk singles, that White Man and Hammersmith Palais, Bob Marley, Punky Reggae Party on the back, and jamming, with no G, jamming. And so those singles were the records I would buy, and then the albums my aunt would get me. They were obviously a bit out of my pocket money range, and then I'd fall in love with bands from the singles, and I still have them at my dad's.
Oh, wonderful! You mentioned your dad's work ethic. And you know, he said he was like a workaholic, and so I'm interested in what you said about drive as well, because you've chosen, Gavin, one of the most insanely competitive industries to try and excel in, and you've excelled beyond, you know, anybody's wildest dreams to achieve what you've achieved in music. Like, tell me a little bit about your relationship with drive and work.
My friends always said that I'm a Calvinist. So I don't know if that's right, the right thing, right phrasing. I mean, we used to be when I lived in when I was in London, I was writing all these songs for the first Bush record. You know, I lived in a flat with my best mate in the front room and my best mate in the hallway, and me in the bedroom with my girlfriend at the time when she was there. So it was like 3, 4, 5 people living there. We stayed up all night, every night. We had a real laugh. But I'd always, I had 2 things that were weird about me. I couldn't create. We used to have the graffiti everywhere in the flat, but we had only an underlay carpet. But I would only like to work. I'd have to clean it all. And I think it was an early feng shui. It was like it's some kind of feng shui thing. I couldn't deal with it. It was like dusty and filthy. So I'd like have to make it not dusty and clean it up and get the underlay all nice. So the blue underlay just perfect, and everything clean. And then I would just sit and play my drum machine and sit and play guitar. And every day I would do something. I tell you what it is because when I first thought I was going to be in a band, I was joining a band with my friend Sasha Putnam, my best friend. His father's David Putnam, the a film producer, you know, Labour peer, whatever. And I wrote him a letter a couple of years ago about this because what happened is that when we were deciding we were going to be in a band and we'd be out every night, they'd come in and get us up in the morning where I'd stay over his house in whatever his house was. And his dad sat us down one day and he said, look, it's all very well and good. You guys want to be in a band, but remember that Tin Pan Alley is 9 to 5, 5 days a week. So if you consider yourselves anything, you know, you want to make something of your lives, my dad was never big on advice. My dad was very like, let me just live, very sweet, very busy, but very sweet and kind. But he never had like these pearls of wisdom about life whatsoever. And he was he was a smart man. My friend's dad, David Putnam, he said, so if you're going to be a songwriter, that's what you got to do, or else you're not doing it. And it really struck home. It just hit me, and it gave me something to follow and be inspired by, really. And maybe I was thirsty for that kind of advice. And I wrote him a letter a little while ago, a few years ago, just saying that he needed to understand the impact he had on my life from that statement and for that talking to. You know, I was so hungry for information and for sort of leadership that, you know, that so it just came from that. And I don't have it. If I don't do anything, it doesn't happen. If I don't write songs, we don't go on tour. It's just been part of it.
Yeah.
And I like it. I like the responsibility, and it gives you a bit of structure. And sometimes when I look at other people who've had jobs, oh, I've got to go to work, got to do this. Sometimes I think it might be easier when you have a boss and a workload, because you have to, okay, do A, B, and C. With me, it's sort of infinite. It's like much better if I write 100 songs, really, because then there's a better chance that I don't write. I write 20 for a record, 25. But it's a better chance. I just give myself a fairer shot in it. So I think that's what it is, that there's an abyss one side, and there's all this land of plenty and fun and indulgence here. And I know how I got there. And in fact, part of me, in my own weird, twisted way, I've really buckled down these last few years. And when I made the Black and White Rainbows record after I got divorced, I sort of made it intrinsically of how I felt, and it's very intuitive, and it was cool. But and some songs I really liked, but it didn't really resonate. My band didn't want to play much of it live, and it was a real wake up call to like, fuck, there's no easy ride. I can't like coast on this. And if I'm lucky enough to be given this opportunity again to make records, I've got to really I got to like focus more. So after that record, and I decided to really buckle down, make it super heavy. And I did The Kingdom. And I think that was really focused writing. And then The Kingdom is so good. I was like, okay, you've got up the ante. So just like, don't let go. Like the next one, this one, it's like I sort of made it difficult for myself, because if you keep the quality going, you've got to keep it going. I hear music, right, that passes me by. I'll play someone's record, and there's two types of records for me. One where it pulls you in, Wild as the Wind, pulled me in. I don't know why, it just pulled me in. And then you might hear another song and it just doesn't pull you in. And I'm just so scared of that, because as soon as I stop having any magnetism in the records, my life is over and I'm just falling backwards and just, no. So I think that drive comes from just loving my job so much, and loving when I get it right. It's so great doing all these interviews and people loving the record, and it just makes me feel good. There's a sense of achievement and purpose, and it makes sense of my life without being too esoteric about it. It gives me meaning to do something well. And I think that Japanese artisan principle of life is something that I really gravitate towards. So weirdly, I don't know why I chose fucking rock music. I could have tried to be a filmmaker. I could have tried to be a novelist. I could have been a painter. Tried. And yet the music was what got me in. And now when I can't sing without a guitar. I generally have to have a guitar, or else people are like, that's not bad. What about guitars? So I'm kind of chained to it. So now I go, fuck it, might as well just try and do it well, because one day, I'll be dead, either physically or musically. You know what I mean? So it's like, might as well do it right, and do it modern, and do it in. I feel so powerful, on these tours. We're out with Alice in Chains, Breaking Bed. I know that when we play, the band is like fierce. Yeah. I don't, I know I can't get on Radio 1 or Radio 2. I can't, loads of barriers to me. No one's going to give me a Grammy. I'm not going to play a stadium. There's limitations completely on my career. But I can still have a responsibility to myself and to people who've believed in me to do something great, and just keep pushing yourself. So yeah, inspiration is what I think the long, quicker answer.
We're going clubbing now, Gavin. Tell me the song that soundtracked them years.
Clubbing. I mean, the one that, it's funny because when I first started really clubbing and going out, and I loved it, loved the nightlife and out. Me and the boys, we used to go out every night. I mean, like, when it's just funny now. I'm at the point in my life where I want to be invited to things that I don't want to go to, but I just want to be no one invited to, and then I'll find a reason to not go and move along with it. I just got invited to Randy Gerber's Halloween party. I feel good about that. I love him. I love Casamigos. I'm probably not going to go, but I feel way better that he invited me. So when I first started going out for real and having it was like that was the acid house.
Oh, wonderful.
And, so Shoom and places like that, and just so that was just like, and I wasn't into acid house music. I was not that kid, you know. More like Happy Mondays, but so Born Slippy is the one. It's sort of that's the one that would kind of sums it all up, because it has the emotion, it has the nightlife, it has the you know, it's all the train spotting time, you know, the kind of you know, the indulgence. I grew up in London, you know what I mean? I don't know where you grew up, but it's like it was pretty free living, and you sort of pretty reckless, and it was just, we used to say, what would Jim do? Jim Morrison, everything. Every night, we have like 5 or 6 guys that come around every night and be like, okay, this is what we've got tonight's fun. I'm not doing all that. Well, okay, committee, what would Jim do? Right, bosh, out we go. Boys, what would Jim do? That was my youth. What would Jim do? So now, if my kids were that reckless, I'd be horrified. No, you know, like
fucking hell, gauging your whole decisions on fucking Neil Young and Jim Morrison. It's impressive you're sitting here today, mate.
Yeah. It is. It's a miracle. So that's its own kind of maze, but it gave great inspiration. You know, Tom Waits said, "The way you do anything is the way you do everything." So it just created something for me, a state of mind. So if Jim would do it, you know, we did it.
Okay, I'm going to take you back home for track 6. Tell me a track, please, Gavin, from your home county.
When we said home county, I'm like, so where's Swiss Cottage on the county? Like, is that Bucks?
Well,
like,
you got London, so you're spoiled.
All right. Well, I thought the closest to me, someone I love a lot, and of course, as a fan, I never met her, but great sadness at the, you know, at the waste. In fact, what we're talking about, living a reckless life like Jim. There was, to me, there's always 2 sides, and I grew up with 2 sides of people that were sort of nightlife fun. The ones that were in it for the fun, that was me and my lot, and then the slightly more sinister side, the darker side of that people, you know, died from overdoses. You know, there's 2 separate people. That me, I was too ambitious. I just want to have fun, and then I'd go home wasted and like want to write from it and learn from it, and like, whoa, you know, be inspired by it. So Amy Winehouse and back in Black, because what a loss, you know, a silly drug loss, you know, just when I say silly, meaning we'd all wish she was alive and well, and just you take a wrong path, and one wrong path leads to the next wrong path, and then you're sort of screwed, and it's so sad to lose her to drugs. And I live in Primrose Hill and I grew up in Swiss Cottage, so that's Camden. So when I was like county, I was like, oh, well, that's the closest. I took county as closest. So Amy Winehouse.
I mean that last record she done, you know, obviously the record, I suppose, like it's faultless. I think it's as close to perfect as a pop record can get.
It's almost as perfect as Portishead. It's like Portishead was always seen, quite rightly, they make perfect records.
Yeah.
And Amy Winehouse made a perfect record. And her one before, was it the Frank? Was that, I can't remember what it was called. You know, jazzy, just full of potential, and like, wow. Yeah. And, you know, fair play to Mark Ronson, you know, who I just weirdly met recently, randomly in Switzerland. I never met him. He's at a festival in Switzerland because, his mum is married to someone in Foreigner.
That's right, yeah.
You knew that? I didn't. Yeah. No one told me that. So I was like, "What's he doing here?" And when I met I met Mark and his mum on the same day, and he makes fantastic records, undoubtedly, and that he's really, really good. And that was just and just the whole thing of getting the Hepcats, you know, getting the band to play with her, just flawless. Let's say so. Yeah, sorely missed, so missed. Just like just like that. I always think of like life is so fragile and the balance of it, you know, and like, you know, had she done anything different that day, you know, if someone popped round to see her, I always think when people, they meet, they that those tragedies happen, that it's by the slim margins of someone not going around and see her mum's birthday could have been that day. Just, she couldn't get the cab to go and get, any slight change. And it's like, it's funny because people always talk about like, how old are you? And people talk about how old they are. But the truth of it, I always thought my whole life this, and it's a bit morbid, so I'm sorry about this, is that you sort of work backwards. Everyone has their time on them. It's like predestined. And it's like how old you are is really, you should be like, how much time have you got left?
Yeah.
That's what it is. That's how old someone is, how much time they have left. So a really untimely death.
Absolutely. Right, it's the last track. And I'm going to ask you to be a tastemaker, or as the kids call it, influencer. Tell me a song that you think many
I got
people.
my top off. Let's take my top off.
Yeah. Tell me a song that you think many people may not know that you'd like them to hear, Gavin.
Oh, that's what the question. Okay. Of people they haven't heard. Okay. Well, that would have to be sort of someone unknown that is undiscovered. Ooh, that makes it tricky because I misunderstood the question.
No. It hasn't got to be it hasn't got to be somebody someone hasn't heard of. If you've got something that you think's really great that you want people to go and check out, then shout about it.
Yeah. Well, the Mars Volta.
Oh, wonderful.
The Mars Volta, this new record. When they left at the drive-in and they began Mars Volta, it was a really wild, as you know, wild, semi-abrasive, wild band, and the lyrics I can't. It's just otherworldly. The guys, Cedric, it's just unbelievable band. I think Cedric is the singer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Just another place. I don't know how he writes that. And so when the new record came out 10 years later, I was really happy to hear it. And it's actually the most relaxing, I don't know, sort of Brazilian, sun ra, mellow. It's just a great record. And so I would think people should run and hear that. And it plays all in of itself. It's very consistent. You can leave it on and it just creates a beautiful mood in your house.
Great shout. Mars Volta, can't ever say enough good things about them. We're talking new records. What are you up to?
Well, I'm in the middle of The Art of Survival came out, so I'm just doing a lot of promo. I also think about some what the next moves are. So I always like to try and sneak in and try and write a couple of songs so that you look really well prepared when it comes around saying, have you got any more songs? And I do, because so I'm doing a little bit of music promo, and I'm trying to work on this. People know about it now, so I've got to just talk about it, but it's a nightmare. I have an interview show that I'm working on called Eat with Gavin Rossdale that I'm trying to finally get going. It's taken a couple of years, takes a long time in TV. And I resurrected my clothing line, Sea of Sound. I don't really know why. I'm a maniac. And so trying to get this, I sort of I don't know why I did that. But so basically between the clothing line and the TV show, I started them both 3 years ago and then stopped them because it was like the money drained the clothing. I was looking for a partner and I thought I'll do it when I get a TV show. Then I was busy making records, and now I've got this little bit of time to think about those things because they are good things where I don't have to leave home. I always leave my boys to work, and whilst I love, mate, I love I miss the applause. I like going out, 15,000 people going nuts, and it is an ego thing, but it's also a spirit thing. It's just being in the eye of the storm that we create as the four of us together, and just making people lose their minds and just bringing extreme joy and release to people. It's such a great job. It's so much fun. It's really fun. It's just a drag. It's the other 23 hours and then like waking up in Ohio, like, oh my God, kill me. Or some terrible casino where you just has like smells of death and hopelessness and just like, I don't like that stuff. It's really hard, you know, and I feel a bit, you know, fancy pants. So I'm gonna like eat a tin of tuna, a bottle of tuna, you know, because I can't get the food as I don't want the food, just all that stuff. It's just a bit. I get a bit. It's a lot sometimes. You know what I mean? It's like, sometimes you can find yourself in places where you can't eat. Everything's, you know. Basically, I don't like playing casinos. Some of them. It's funny because the casinos take care of you, and so they help tours. They just give you a nice, you know, they pay well, and so there's a good bump. You know, we have a lot of people. Everyone needs, you know, to be well paid and all that sort of stuff. But sometimes they don't. The carpets, people shuffling, and the slot machines. It's just there's a grimness to it. I'm like, please no casinos. The fancy casinos are fun, but the peripheral casinos, it's just really tricky. It's like I feel this way. That's why, you know, it's an old adage that's been well worn of the idea that you sing for free, but you spend the day is where you get paid. You get paid for the day. You know, you get paid for the brick omelette.
Gavin, I've had an absolutely delightful time talking records with you, mate. It's been an absolute joy. And
thank you so much.
If people want to keep up to speed with you, mate, on any upcoming gigs and the clothing range and the TV show, where's the best place to follow all things you?
At Gavin Rossdale, and I think I put a good page, and I've got the global equivalent of no one on there. It's very small. It's like 300,000 or something. I'm like, that's the global equivalent of no one. Where is everyone? So anyone want to fancy a visit on there? But that's where I am. And I actually have a little page for my clothing line, and which I'm going to resurrect the page. But it's a now relaunch of that, actually, Sea of Sound. And that's it. I mean, look, I'm not doing a solo record. It's a bit annoying when bands, people do certain things. No one wants them to be solo artists. Nobody wants that, especially a rock band. Don't do that. But a bit of a clothing line, it's nice, and a bit of a chat show could be fun. A bit of a chat show.
Oh, wonderful! Best of luck with it all, mate. Like I say, it's been an absolute joy. Have a lovely day.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks loads, Gavin. Cheers, mate. Bye bye.